Hey friends, Bill here. Hope you're having a good week. Having a good one here at SFOI, Lord willing. About 12 of us are going to be in San Antonio this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, preaching at the Final Four. I think all four teams there are number one seeds, and that should be a good crowd. I think there's only one that's been a continual presence. That's Duke. So we got Auburn, which is new, Florida, which is not there very often. We've got Houston, which is not there very often. And so Duke has a new coach. All that means, I don't really care about all that. What that means is fans, fans, fans. So that's what we're looking for, fans and local citizens, folks working there. So we're looking forward to preaching Christ on there for 4 days. So pray for the team, my friends, that we can get down there and get the job done. And last we were there, I think 2018 when we were there last time. And so in that process, there's a ton of people there. That's what we ran into, a lot of people in San Antonio. So I'm anticipating a big crowd. Another group of people that were there last time was the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think they had 2,500 volunteers that weekend. We were there before. There were those stands were everywhere. That was a time when we saw those people kick off really aggressive quote evangelism strategy, the way they do evangelism. And so that's when it started. That's when I saw it. They had ton of people. I've seen their stands lots of places over the years, but that was really anyway. That just kicked it off. Long story short. So that's this weekend. I want to talk about the events for the day in SFO 1000 MLB. First, let's talk about calling for a second. Had a good conversation with a young man today. He was believed he was called to do evangelism. What's calling? Let's just talk about that for a second. I think sometimes when you start to think about what is a calling, and you start asking or looking around and stuff, there's a lot of variety of information out there. I think most of it is marginally helpful. Here's how I would say it was really helpful. This is what was really helpful to me. Now, one calling versus just doing God's will. So when it comes to, let's just use, you could apply this to teaching or really pastoring or evangelizing. We obviously have an ability as human beings to understand the need to evangelize, the need to teach, and the need to shepherd. But let's just teaching might be the easiest one. Like if you love the Bible and you want to teach your friends the Bible, you can have a Bible study. Well, that you just enjoy it, and you want them to know the Bible, and you're a good teacher, and you can teach well. You invite people over your house once a week and have a Bible study. That doesn't mean you're called to teach. That's just you know how to do it. You're good at it. You might have an aptitude to teach, which is part of a calling, but you're not necessarily called to teach. And you're working, living life like you normally do, and then you have this teaching time, and people come. All right, I think there's a lot of that in there. I think some guys, I've heard a story about a Calvary Chapel teacher. I think he was probably a good teacher. He didn't really exude a lot of a spiritual depth. I'm just trying to be specific enough. I'm not picking on Calvary Chapel, but apparently he's a really good teacher. Apparently there's something about him people like being around, and the church grew. But I don't think he was a called teacher, but he was just good at it. He had been in the hospitality business. He knew how to get people around him. So that's definitely out there, no doubt about it. Evangelizing. We all know the need to believe in Jesus. We can hang out on Tract. We can talk to our friends. We can invite people to church just because we understand God made us understand how this works, and we can do it. Shepherding, kind of similar, not in the sense that listen, you got a friend, you care about your buddy, you'll shepherd him. You'll like help them, like you'll help people. We can be the good Samaritan. We can help people. We understand that. We can shepherd them along. There's a lot of Christian and non-Christian ministries that reach out to their fellow man to help them variety of needs. It's not all about being homeless. You've got veterans ministries, in the sense of reaching out to secular groups, reaching out to veterans that have come home, and helping with housing, helping with debt, all this stuff. Like you just listen to the radio long enough, in a sense that's pastoral work. You could say it like that. And in other words, we know how to do something to help someone, and it's not really just because we care about them. It's not necessarily an economic transaction. So that's and even open air preaching. Look, we can understand the need for people to believe. We can see large crowds, and we can go out there and preach, and you can do a good job and come back. But you're not called to do it. It doesn't mean not to do it. It just doesn't mean there's not a calling element in there. So what would a calling be? How would you know if you've got a real calling? Well, I think one thing that happens is that there's this divine intervention. So the Spirit of God comes into your life and basically disrupts your life. I think that is an element of a calling. And this is where the difference between just knowing what to do and doing it and sort of getting called to do it is. I think the calling is a calling to also to a ministerial position. In other words, the Spirit of God is going to disrupt your life. You're going to have this sense that something's different. There's going to be some spiritual guidance here into a part of the ministry world, and you're going to start picking up on it. Things you've never thought about before. There's going to be probably a pretty significant time of sanctification as well in your life, because you've got to really, as a minister, live a life. That's just the plan. That's what I see at a high level of sanctification, because of you're entering this world at a deeper level, and so that's going on as well. So I think calling is you've got this intervention, and it's okay. Like if you wanted to be a full-time evangelist, but you didn't have a calling, hey man, that's good, and you can do a lot of this. Nothing I'm saying about the calling eliminates someone who doesn't experience what I'm talking about from doing the work. But on the evangelism front, the calling, you're going to get this calling. There's going to be a spiritual dynamic. Your life's going to change. I mean, I can tell you stories about my own experience and other people. Their life definitely has changed. And there's this, just what I'm saying. All of a sudden, you begin to see these people. You get a burden, like the brother said today. There's this burden to get out and do the work. You can't shake it. The things you used to do, you don't want to do anymore. You got this unnatural, in other words, it's not something you motivated yourself to be, unnatural, supernatural motivation to go, a burden to not go. When you don't go, you get this burden. You've got a motivation to get out there. And so things like that, that's what I mean supernatural. I was telling him today, one thing happened to me. Now this could be completely silly and whatnot, but like there was a Mexican restaurant near where I lived in Atlanta at the time. I'm from here where I'm at here in Chattanooga, but at that time the whole ministry thing started when I was in Atlanta. And I would walk over next door every now and then. I love Mexican food. And so anyway, this calling stuff starts, and man, it was pretty intense. It was like I couldn't sleep. I wasn't like I could not sleep. God would not let me sleep. He was, send me down to places to evangelize. And well, I didn't want to go. I just did not want to do it. I wanted to do something else. And which was, I thought he wanted me to still keep doing. We'll save about that for later. I remember one time going, I'm just going to go over there, eat some Mexican food or whatever. I got over there, and it was a completely terrible experience. Like the food didn't taste the same. I love chips and salsa. It didn't taste the same. And that's what I mean. Like all of a sudden, like that stuff, you might want to sit down and watch your favorite TV show or whatever, and all of a sudden, it's not the same anymore. That's what I mean. Like you get this divine intervention. You're not interested in whatever used to capture your attention. And then the Spirit of God will drive you forward into the work. And so for me, certainly the Spirit of God drove me into the work. That's what I was doing for him and other people. That's a typical story. And it's pushing you forward, and you're going on. So you've got this mind change going on by the Spirit of God. This pushing forward to do the work. This restlessness if you're not doing it. New thoughts coming at you. Not being able to rest and relax because you're not doing it. All of that's going on. And ultimately, the way it seems to be is this sort of incubator where your God's going to get you out there to do this, plus the in-depth sanctification, and you get out there and start doing it. And once you do it, there's really, in a sense, no turning back. There's just, right after all the years for me at least, you can understand, quote, leaving the work and going and doing something else. You can think through that it might be easier on your life. And it might be helpful for this and that reason. I mean, obviously, and then you learn a lot. You learn a lot when you preach for 25 years, and so transitioning back into the workplace is not as significant of a transition as it was when you first got started. But you don't want to do it. You just can't let go of it, if you will. It's not something that you are just going to walk away from as if it's been a hobby. Part of that also is you paid a significant price. Your world has changed. Your friends have changed. Friends you had before no longer your friends because you're preaching. You got a lot of new friends, and so much has changes in your life, and that's a calling as well. So I think a lot of that combination that's a calling. One other aspect: how do you know if you're called to evangelism? this is a natural thing to say, but uh, versus something else. We were talking today, and I said, look, what is it that how did I say it? Like, if you're called a pastor, you're going. That's where you're going to be driven to. If you're called to teach, you're going to go right to that and evangelize likewise. So, like, if you're called to teach, you're going to teach. You're not going to shepherd. You're going to want to teach. You're going to want to teach more. You're going to want to study the text in depth, study Greek and Hebrew, and be a good like. That's where you immerse yourself in the scriptures and theology, so you can teach it. And then the way you want to communicate what you know is by a classroom setting or discipleship setting. And you're not going to shepherd people. You're there to teach. And that structure I think comes about through the calling. If you want to shepherd, same way. Like if you have an instinct now to shepherd, you get a call, you're going to continue on. Same with teaching and evangelism. And so you're going to drift over in that world. And shepherding, pastoring is you have a high interest in people and their discipleship and they're maturing in the faith. And you can be teaching as part of that, but you're not primarily a teacher. You're primarily a shepherd, helping people grow in their faith. That's part of helping them grow in their faith, right? Is teaching. And so evangelism, guys that evangelists have really no desire to shepherd people, and we're really not teachers. What we excel in is preaching the cross of Christ over and over again, and knowing Jesus Christ crucified is the topic of our biblical study. So you begin to get your life gets segmented out in these sort of channels, and the calling drives you forward to become good in those arenas. So if you have a perspective that you're called to this kind of work and you're a little unclear, give me a ring. I'd be glad to share more detail about your situation. I'll tell you one more thing that he made me think about this morning when I was actually going to First Baptist in Atlanta when the evangelism stuff started. And one thing I did, I loved doing it. I was a greeter at the door. I loved that stuff. I loved standing there and welcoming people to the church. And it's a big church. And I just had this sort of natural instinct to remember people's names and their families, so I could ask how they're doing every week. And people smiled when they came and all that. And so, in other words, like I was a greeter at the door of First Baptist. Now I'm kind of a greeter to the kingdom of God in essence. So the transition was really just on the same line. I didn't see it that way at the time, but what I'm saying here is, if you're at a church and you're teaching Sunday school already and you're enjoying it, and you get this calling, you're probably calling is going to be teaching, right? Like what you're doing now and your involvement in the church is probably where your calling is going to be because you've got the aptitude for it and interest in it, and you drift over in that way. Probably so. I'm not saying that's a hard and fast rule, but that's probably what's going to happen. If you're someone who likes to get involved in church life in a shepherding fashion, but you're just doing it because you like people and whatever. Like at our church, we've got 2 or 3 like children's classes, like nursery classes, and volunteers go in during the service to sit with the kids, and then obviously we've got Sunday school teachers. So but they care. So if there's a calling, I would assume those people that do that and really enjoy being with the kids, that's where their calling would be in that shepherding process. So you see what I'm saying? So that's another way to think about how this calling works out. But again, to summarize, a calling is going to be, you're going to have this divine intervention in your life. There's going to be a change in how you look at the Christian life. It's probably going to be a high level of sanctification begin, and you're not going to be able to shake this calling. It's going to be a burden to you until you get out there and get in it. It's almost like a pressure, a weight comes upon you until you get the weight up, like if you're lifting weights, but you're getting the weight up is really getting out there and beginning to do the work. Hope that's some good intro to the idea of a calling. And if you're called, like I said, give me a ring. Let's talk about it, because certainly our mission here is to get everyone out ministering to people because there's just a tremendous need for it. That's another thing. When you get out in this kind of work, last point, we'll move on to the events, is that you find out there's just so much to do. And you'll see the need for a full-time calling. When you're just going to church, you don't really, you understand. If I say to you and you're going to church where there's 8 billion people on the planet, half of them haven't heard the name of Jesus, you're gonna understand what that means. They need to hear about him. But when you have a calling, there's going to be a compelling force that moves you forward into that work. And so And then when you get into that work, you're going to see the depth of what is required in that work is what I'm driving at. We can understand it intellectually, but until you get in it, you cannot see how great the need is for you to be there and for others to be there as well. So I want to help you get there if that's what you want to do. 423-724-7500. Hey, excuse me, SFOI 1000 program. Let me talk about that for a second. Baseball has started, and here's what this is. We're looking for advantage to preach at the nearby Major League Baseball stadium. Here's what I'm going to do right this second. I'm going to read through the cities that have a Major League team. If you live in one of those cities and can or will evangelize and contact me, we could talk about the program. They're in Phoenix, Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston. Chicago has two teams, the Cubs and the White Sox, different parts of town. Cincinnati, Dave Dorman, it's in Cincinnati. Cleveland, Denver, Detroit, Houston, Kansas City, Los Angeles Angels and Los Angeles Dodgers, Miami, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, the New York Mets, New York Yankees, Oakland, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, Texas Rangers, which is in Dallas-Fort Worth, Toronto, and Washington, D.C. What the deal is, you basically are committing to preach to half the home games. They play 80 home games. You're talking about 40 games over about a 4 or 5 month period. So it's a lot of games to commit to the being part of the program, but they're spread out so far. It's very limited infringement on your time, if you want to say it that way. So, but great opportunity. Last year, 22 million, I think it was, 73 million fans went to MLB games, 2003, 2023, 2024. Tremendous opportunity. And that's just the other part of this. You always hear me say about the 1000 program. If you go to all these games, half or more, you'll become a fixture. People get to know you, and you develop a chaplain-like ministry to the fans, and that makes the work all the more. So you deal evangelistically, like repent and believe, and you also minister to people as they get to know you better. You've got fans, you've got people that work there, ticket scalpers, police, the whole thing. You begin to leaven the area with the gospel. So it's a huge, huge opportunity for gospel ministry and a great opportunity that's presented today. So SFOI 1000 MLB, check it out. And on the link on this video, and let's talk about you going to those games. Last thing, games tonight's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is what we're going to cover. So tonight, what I'm going to do is normal. Hope it's helpful. Is read the city where there are events and the start time, which are Eastern time. So we've got MLS games tonight. Looks like there's about 11. Leesburg, Virginia, 6:30 p.m. start. Lewistown, Maine, 6:30 p.m. start. Chattanooga, Greenville, South Carolina, Mount Vernon, New York, 7 p.m. start. Naples, Florida, Madison, Wisconsin, 7:30 p.m. start, 8:30 p.m. start. Vancouver, Canada, West Des Moines, Pennsylvania. Vancouver, 9:30 p.m. start, 10 p.m. start. Tukwila, Washington, and 10:30 Park, Carson, California, 11:30 LA. Let's see, hang on, I skipped over something. NHL games, got about 14. Got 5 in the NBA and MLB. 5 NHL games. New York, New York. Raleigh, North Carolina, 7 p.m. start. Toronto, 7:30 p.m. start. Chicago, Illinois, 9:30 p.m. start. And Vancouver, 10:30. NBA games, Cleveland, Ohio. Indianapolis, Washington, D.C., 7 p.m. start. Boston, let's see, my eyes are bad. Boston, 7:30 p.m. start. Houston, 8 p.m. start. Dallas, 8:30 p.m. start. Denver, 9 p.m. start. Oklahoma City, 9:30. And Inglewood, which is LA, 10:30 p.m. start. MLB games, got about 14. Let's see, it's already, what time is it? 3:12, so we are late for some of the games. We'll move it out to Baltimore, 6:35 start. Philadelphia, 6:45 start. Bronx, 7:05 start. Los Angeles, 8:38 p.m. start. Tomorrow, Thursday, NHL games about 9. Montreal, Canada. Ottawa, Canada, 7 p.m. start. Columbus, Ohio, 7:30 p.m. start. St. Louis, Missouri. Dallas, Texas, 8 p.m. start. Salt Lake City, 9 p.m. start. Calgary, Canada, 9:30. Paradise, Nevada, which is Las Vegas, 10 p.m. start. San Jose, California, 10:30 p.m. start. NBA games. Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, 7 p.m. start. Brooklyn, Miami, Toronto, 7:30 p.m. start, and 10 p.m. start in Los Angeles. About 4 MLB games. Baltimore, Maryland, 105 Philadelphia, 105 start Minneapolis, 410 start Bronx, New York, 705, and then American Family Field, I think that's in Milwaukee. That is a 7:40 p.m. start. 2 concerts this weekend, April 3 to 5, Iowa City, the Mission Creek Festival, and then also April 3 to 5, One Big Holiday in Miramar Beach, Florida. Friday, we'll do this to be done. NHL, 2 at 7 p.m., Detroit, Michigan, Washington, D.C., 1 7:30, Long Island, New York. NBA games, 7 p.m. start Charlotte and Indianapolis, 7:30 start Boston, Toronto, 8 p.m. start Chicago, Houston, San Antonio. No way, is that Friday? That's great. We should be there for that. Chase Center, 10 p.m. start, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Inglewood, both in LA, 10:30 p.m. start Friday. MLB, 1:10 start Detroit, 2:10 start Boston, 2:20 start Chicago, 3:10 Citi Field in New York City. That's the Mets play there. 4:10 start Denver, 4:12 start Pittsburgh, 4:35 San Francisco, 6:45 Washington City and Philadelphia, 7:15 start Atlanta, 7:40 start Kansas City, 8:05 Arlington, 8:10 Milwaukee, 9:38 Anaheim, and 8 p.m. So that's MLB. UFL game, 8 p.m. start Detroit, Michigan. And then we've got concerts. Baton Rouge Blues Fest, April 4 to 6, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Breakaway Festival, Dallas. Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. Chili Fest, April 4 to 5, Snook, Texas. Cruise to the Edge. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, April 4 to 9. Dream State, San Francisco, April 4 to 5. Hogs for the Cause, April 4 to 5, New Orleans. Jackson Hole Rendezvous, 4 to 5, Jackson, Wyoming Metal and Beer Fest in Philadelphia, April 4 to 5. To the Fillmore, Phoenix Lights, April 4 to 5, Rawhide Event Center, Phoenix. Reggae Rise Up, Arizona, April 4 to 6, Tempe Beach Park, Phoenix. Rock the Country, April 4 to July 26, Fair Locations, U.S. Tortuga Music Fest in Fort Lauderdale, April 4 to 6, and Tucson Folk Fest, April 4 to 6, Tucson, Arizona. All right, friends. Hey, listen, thanks for tuning in. Call me if you want to talk about your calling to get out and minister to people. SFOI 1000 MLB. Anything else I can help you with, let me know. 423-724-7500. Thanks, friends, for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.